The Deepwater Reflection Model, Episode 6 of The Mind Mapped. 6 episodes have built the architecture from the waterline down. One continuous structure, a dynamic threshold, an active submerged system, sedimented identity, a prediction engine running continuously, a feedback loop that can maintain stability or, under deliberate engagement, produce genuine structural change. Episode 6 names it, not as a reveal, as a recognition. The reader has been inside this model for 6 episodes. The name should feel like something already known arriving at last. The name and what it points at. The Deepwater Reflection Model. 3 words doing 3 jobs. Deep water, the architecture is mostly submerged. The portion below the waterline is larger, older, more load-bearing than what sits above it. The significant structure lives at depth, built through accumulated experience, compressed into layers, running predictions continuously without crossing into conscious access. Most of what the system is doing is happening in water you cannot see directly. Reflection. 2 meanings, both operative, one more important than the other. The less obvious meaning first. The architecture can partially observe itself. The second eye watching outputs as they cross the waterline is the submerged structure briefly becoming visible to the system that generated it. That recursive capacity, the loop turning on itself, is what makes deliberate engagement possible at all. Without it, the system would run without any instrument for reading what it's actually doing. The more familiar meaning second. What crosses the waterline reflects what's below. The outputs are expressions of the submerged architecture. Reading the surface carefully, with the second eye engaged, gives genuine, if partial, intelligence about the depths. Model, not a metaphor, a functional description of how the architecture appears to operate. Descriptive, not prescriptive. Subject to revision as evidence accumulates. The word model carries its own epistemic posture. This is how the system appears to behave, observed carefully, described without more certainty than the observation supports. What the model unifies. The model isn't a new idea added to the series. It's the recognition that everything built across both series was always describing the same architecture from different angles. The receiver from the mind unbuilt, the directional process with inseparable felt interior, is the same structure whose waterline the mind mapped has been mapping. The second eye, introduced in the mind unbuilt, is the observation function operating within the feedback loop assembled in Article 5. The gate is the specific moment in the loop where the first eye either holds open or closes over what the second eye caught. The interpreter, the person who emerges different after genuine change, is what the architecture becomes after sufficient rights have shifted the prediction model at depth. One architecture, the Deepwater Reflection Model, is what they were all describing. The organizing principle. There is a single question running underneath everything the model has built. Not what is consciousness? That question opened the mind unbuilt and was answered only partially. Something that functions as a receiver with an inseparable felt interior operating in both directions. The hard problem remained hard. The mechanism was described without explaining why there is something it is to be like. The deeper question, the one the model actually answers, is this. How does incoming signal become lived experience, and how does lived experience recursively reshape the system that performs the conversion? That is a question about conversion. Everything in the model revolves around it. The waterline is where conversion becomes visible. The sediment is the conversion architecture built from prior experience. The prediction engine is the conversion architecture reaching forward. The second eye is the conversion architecture observing its own outputs. The feedback loop is the conversion architecture modifying itself through what it observes. Consciousness is a part of this. Identity is a part of this. Memory, prediction, change, selfhood, all part of this. But the thing tying them together is not consciousness itself, it is conversion. This is a narrower claim than explaining consciousness. It is also a more defensible one, and a more useful foundation for everything that follows. What has been built across these 12 episodes is not primarily a theory of consciousness or of identity or of change. It is a functional description of how an adaptive system interprets incoming signal and how that interpretation recursively reshapes the system performing it. A system architecture of adaptive interpretation. What the model changes. Naming the architecture changes what questions become askable. Before the model, questions like, why can't I change or why do I keep doing this, have no precise address. They float. The answers tend to be moral, weakness, laziness, lack of discipline, or vaguely psychological in a way that doesn't tell you where to look or what to do differently. After the model, the same questions have a structural address. The behavior generating the question is an output of sedimented architecture running a prediction model. The question becomes, what is written below the waterline that predicts this output, and what would need to be written differently for different outputs to emerge? Those are answerable questions. Not easy, not fast, but tractable in a way that why am I like this never was. The model replaces moral framing with structural framing, not because the morality doesn't matter, but because structural questions can actually be worked with. What the model cannot do. Honesty here is load-bearing. The model does not explain why there is something it is like to be a receiver at all. The hard problem stays hard. The architecture maps what the mechanism appears to do, not why felt experience accompanies it rather than nothing. The model does not provide direct access to the submerged architecture. The second eye observes outputs, not the structure generating them. The intelligence it provides is real but indirect, partial, and made at the boundary rather than from inside. The model does not promise change as easy or fast or equally available. The feedback loop is real, the tipping point is real, the gravity of existing sediment is also real. Knowing the mechanism does not dissolve the difficulty of working with it. And the model remains a description, not a complete account. What the architecture ultimately is, what hosts it, what its relationship to the physical substrate consists of, these remain open questions that honest inquiry has not yet answered. In closing, the Deepwater reflection model. One continuous structure, a dynamic water line, sedimented identity running predictions from depth, a feedback loop that maintains or modifies the architecture through observation and deliberate engagement, a systems architecture of adaptive interpretation. This is what the system appears to be, described without more certainty than the evidence supports, useful without claiming to be final. Maps do not replace the territory, they make movement through it possible. The territory here is the interior. The map is where these 12 episodes have been drawing, one observation at a time, one earned step at a time, leaving the hardest questions hard while making the tractable ones tractable. That is what this model is for. The Mercer Journal is an independent, reader-supported platform. You can back our work at ko-fi.com/wemercer. That's ko-fi.com/WEMERCER. And thanks for listening.